I'm Bridie Moran. I'm Deputy Director at 4A Centre for Contemporary Asian Art. I'd like to acknowledge that this video was filmed on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that this land was never ceded. Today, I'm standing in Monuments by Dean Cross. This is an installation that is on display at 4A Centre for Contemporary Asian Art until the 1st of October 2020. It's part of the Drawn by Stones curatorial project, for which I'm the curator, which will be a full exhibition project that continues into 2021. If you'd like to find out more about Dean, the exhibition project or monuments, you can visit 4a.com.au.
Hello, I'm Dean Cross and we are here amongst Monuments, my show at 4A Gallery. So Monuments is comprised of 232 handfuls of white Ngunnawal Ngambri ochre and gold leaf, 232 being years since colonisation. The work is designed to grow every 2 years when I present it biannually, and the growth of the work will continue, ideally, long after I'm gone. The idea for the work is that it can exist in the world without me. It's an idea independent of me as its maker. The genesis of the work was a dismay, I suppose, at a lack of Aboriginal monumentalisation. You can walk down the street here in Sydney and be reminded left, right and centre of our colonial history, but it's much harder. You have to work much harder to physically see in the real world Aboriginal monuments, Aboriginal memorials that aren't also then themselves in the Western kind of canon. And so this work came about thinking through that problem. I sort of often tell the same story. We're on the road to where our house is, where this all came from as a scar tree. Seen this tree, my whole life. And then one day, the tree looked different. And it sort of clicked. I realised, had this sort of epiphany, I suppose, of understanding where the scar tree is the monument. They exist everywhere. And beyond the people that still exist, there are these physical markers that do tell a history. And so I think really then the challenge is one of perspective and shifting that perspective, and hopefully the work is part of that conversation to shift and to challenge colonial perspectives or colonial thinking that will allow new vision in the world around us. Within Monuments, there are the two key elements to the work, the white ochre and the gold leaf. The gold leaf that I use serves multiple functions within the work. Initially, one of the thought trains that I went on was about extraction and thinking through what my own process is of extracting the ochre with my old man, and how that differs to the usual process of mineral extraction in this country and the values that we place on those two practices. The ochre that I use is Ngunnawal Ngambri ochre. It comes from what was once a really large ochre pit that was since then turned into a clay quarry for bricks, about 60 kilometres northeast of Canberra, where my parents live, where I grew up. So there's a whole lot of homes in Canberra made with white bricks. Those bricks are made from this ochre. Monuments has been shown as a part of the Shepparton Indigenous Ceramic Prize. And when I submitted my application to show this work as a part of this prize, it kind of came with a caveat or a question that I asked about, well, at what point does clay, this particular clay, this ochre, at what point does it sort of transmutate into ceramic? And then there was a conversation around this kind of spectrum of material, and there's the kind of dry, boring answer of clay goes into a kiln, ceramics comes out. But I feel that it's more interesting, at least, and then in the context of this work, to sort of think about ceramic as always being country. This work, like most artworks, it points to the thing. It isn't the thing that it points to. And so whilst it's called Monuments, it's titled Monuments, I think of the work less in that way, if that makes sense. I don't think I don't think that there's a future where it would become sort of permanently installed. I think that I'd be more pleased if somebody else came and saw the work in whatever iteration in the future and thought, maybe I can make my own monument. Maybe that it's less about the monumentalization and more about the thinking and the active undoing of the untruths that we grew up with here in Australia, and that I'd be more pleased to empower somebody to invent their own. Monuments as an iterative work has a lifespan, hopefully beyond my own. And so in that there becomes challenges around custodianship. Ownership is less important. I don't actually feel like I particularly own this work, but I do feel like a custodian of the material. At some point in the future, I will need to think through how and who delivers the work, and in what ways that can continue into the future. I really think of the work as pointing towards a problem that needs to be fixed. In that sense, there's perhaps sort of two alternate futures for the work. There's this one where it does need to be, we need to be reminded regularly, to think again about where we live, the histories that we all embody, and the ways that we remember. But then there might be this alternate reality where we've become so sort of progressive maybe, or we've worked it out. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Where this kind of decolonial sort of idea fully blooms, and we won't need to be reminded in the same way.